Good morning. It's a beautiful day. It really is a beautiful day. It's also a few days before Rosh Hashanah. As Jews, we are the only people that dread our holidays. Everyone else is popping champagne, and we are, oh no, really? A Jewish holiday? Rosh Hashanah, I think there's this idea around it that may be true, may not be true, and I want to try to dispel it a bit and maybe even turn it on its head as we like to do in this class. And my that's my goal today is to turn the idea of Rosh Hashanah on its head to make it meaningful to us in a different way, in a way that maybe we haven't been able to connect to. And also my invitation is to try to see if we can connect to it in a different way. So people say, what is Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year. Not true, actually. Rosh Hashanah is not the Jewish New Year. The Jewish year starts the first of Nisan, so Rosh Hashanah is actually the Jewish half New Year. It's 6 months into the Jewish New Year. So if it's not the Jewish New Year, what is it? On the 25th of Elul, before the year zero, God created the world. Bereshit bara Elokim in the beginning. The beginning was the 25th of Elul before the year zero. 6 days later is the first of Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah. On the sixth day, what was created? Well, the animals were created, and in the afternoon of the sixth day, Adam and Eve were created. So Rosh Hashanah is actually the birthday of man and woman, of humans. That's what it actually is. So really, we should be saying it's not Happy New Year, but Happy Birthday. Now, what does Happy Birthday really mean? Again, in our society, birthdays are pop the champagne. For us, a birthday is about a recounting. It's about a reflection. It's a day. I mean, we can take any day of the year and recount and reflect. But a birthday is a coming of age. We look back at the year that passed. We have gratitude, we have guilt, we have shame, maybe. And then we look towards the future and ask ourselves, what is the year that we want to come? And sometimes when we do this recounting, we ask ourselves tough questions. I don't know about you, but I definitely do. Asking myself, who am I? Uh, what kind of spouse am I? What kind of person am I? What have I done with the gifts and capacities that I've been given? I'm not trying to be morbid here, but did I deserve another year of life? And one of the beautiful aspects of Judaism is that on Rosh Hashanah, we are called upon to ask ourselves these existential questions. Now, I worry about asking these questions because it starts taking us down rabbit holes that maybe we don't want to go down. And so there is a structure to it throughout the prayers of Rosh Hashanah. It's one of the reasons why we go to synagogue and we spend our day in prayer. And there are a number of prayers that really focus on this day. One of them is a prayer that is not probably one you wouldn't know offhand, one that you wouldn't know out of context. This particular prayer that we say on Rosh Hashanah it it frames this self-reflection powerfully. It's one of the most beloved prayers, and it begins with the words Hayom Harat Olam, which means today is the birthday of the world. Today the world is born. Today marks really not the birthday of the world, but the birthday of the purpose for which the world was created. The world was created for humans to be able to make this world better, to improve this world. And three times during the cantor's repetition of the Musaf prayer, the shofar is sounded, and each time the congregation responds with the added fervor, Hayom Harat Olam, today the world is born. Now, I think that this is an exceptionally odd response to the sounding of the shofar, the beautiful sound of the shofar. The shofar is the cry, it's the primal cry. It's when we don't have words to describe our feelings. It's when the feelings are so visceral, they're so consuming that a word wouldn't even fit in its place. And so we sound the shofar, that primal cry. And what do we respond? Today the world is born. Why? Because the only time the phrase Harat Olam, the world is born, appears in the entire Bible, in the entire Tanakh, in the entire Torah, it's used in a radically different context. Actually, when the Torah uses this word, it uses it almost in the opposite way of what it means in our prayer book. I want to set the scene for you, and I think that the history of this is so important to really understand and to get into what it means to you and me. I will say that some of us may connect to the history and some of us may not, and that's okay. There's something here for everyone. The expression of Harat Olam comes from the book of Jeremiah. I'm going to set the scene for you. The prophet Jeremiah lived 2,600 years ago, around the year 600 BCE. During the final years of the First Temple period in Jerusalem, he witnessed the destruction of the First Temple, of King Solomon's temple, by the Babylonians. He lived through the bitter exile of our people in Babylon. The Babylonian Talmud, we have a Talmud class here, usually right after this one. The Babylonian Talmud was written during the Babylonian exile. And in the years leading up to Jerusalem's fall, Jeremiah tries desperately to warn the people. He pleaded with them to change their ways, to stop living unethically, to stop, at the time, idol worship was a very big deal. It's against the Torah. To stop worshiping idols. He said God would withdraw his protection from Israel and calamity would follow. He warned them. He begged and he pleaded. And for delivering this unpopular message, Jeremiah was not thanked. He was not applauded for being the national conscience. He was despised as a traitor. The authorities threw him in prison for demoralizing the nation. People claim that because he predicted a Babylonian victory, he must be a Babylonian sympathizer. He was sympathizing with the enemy. And even after he was released from prison, Jeremiah continued to warn of impending doom. For this, people publicly humiliated him. He became the most hated man in Jerusalem for speaking the uncomfortable truth that nobody wanted to hear. Broken in body and spirit, Jeremiah cries out in grief and despair. In chapter 20 of the book of Jeremiah, he pours out his anguish to God. He says, "Oh God, I am ridiculed all day long. Everyone mocks me. The word of God has brought me nothing but insult all day long. Cursed be the day I was born. He's so distraught that he questions the very purpose of his life. Essentially, he says, if this is my fate, if all my dedication and sacrifice have only brought me pain, then why was I ever born? If I live in constant pain, why did you create me, God? I wish I had never left my mother's womb. And then he uses this haunting phrase, Virachma Harat Olam. I wish my mother's womb had been my grave, that she remained pregnant with me forever. Poetic in a morbid way. In other words, Harat Olam in Jeremiah's cry means eternal pregnancy, never coming to birth, never seeing the light of day. This is the original context of this phrase, Harat Olam. Not necessarily the day of birth, but the eternal pregnancy. It's interesting, the word for pregnancy is harayon. Harat means conception or gestation. And olam has a double meaning. It means world, but it also means eternity, forever. So Jeremiah's usage of Harat Olam implies being forever in utero, endless waiting, potential never actualized, a life never born into reality. And so let's go back to this prayer and to our lives. Rosh Hashanah, we say this prayer over and over again. Hayom Harat Olam. And it means almost the opposite. Today the world is born. Jeremiah said, endless utero, endless pregnancy. And we're saying today the world is born. Today on Rosh Hashanah, a new world comes into being. Today we celebrate a new, creative, dynamic beginning. And I want to hold these two truths at the same time. The truth of this prayer, a new beginning, and the truth of Jeremiah, the potential never actualized. The dual meaning. And I think that's why the sages select this enigmatic phrase as our response to the shofar's call. They're presenting us with a profound choice on this birthday of the world. You and I, we are given an opportunity and we're given a choice. Each one of us has wonderful abilities. We have spectacular inner resources. We carry so much potential. But we have a choice. Which Harat Olam will define us? The new world, the new beginning, or the potential that's never actualized? Will we choose Jeremiah's Harat Olam, remaining forever in a state of unrealized potential, with great treasures that are locked up inside of us that never see the light of day? Will we live as if we were never truly born into our purpose? Our gifts are forever gestating, but never delivered. Or are we going to choose to proclaim Hayom Harat Olam, that today, Rosh Hashanah, the world is born anew, that today we will be born anew. I can do it any day, but today is the day. That today is the day that I can begin to express my inner capacities in reality. Today, I can bring my talents to life. You can bring your talents to life, to give birth to your abilities and share them with the world. Today, we will start to become the person that we were meant to be. The shofar is like God's alarm clock. It's waking us up to these questions. With each blast, it's as if God is asking us, how have you used the life I have given you so far? What have you done with the abilities? What have you done with the opportunities? What have you done with the triggers that I have placed in your hands? With the messages that I send you every single day? And will you now embrace a fuller life? Will you develop those gifts more deeply? Will you make a difference? Will you be a blessing to the world? And especially a blessing to the people that you love and the people in your life? That's the great question, this beautiful duality. So often, and especially today, we find ourselves, I find myself, in the state of doom and gloom, wondering about the future of the world. And I can't think of a better moment for Rosh Hashanah to come to present another way of looking at the world, a reframe, an opportunity to ask myself, is this the narrative that I want to play? Is this the story that I want to tell myself over and over and over again? Because abracadabra, with my words I create. So whatever I'm going to say, that will come true. So do I want the magic of the negativity, or do I want the magic of positivity? That's what abracadabra is. It's magic. Do I want What kind of magic? What do I want to create? What do I want to see in front of my eyes? What's the world that I want to exist in? It's not the world that's happening to me. It's the world that's happening for me. I am not a victim of circumstance. I am a creator. And I have an opportunity every single moment to co-create with God, to co-create a new reality. I'll tell you a story about a great Jewish scholar of the 19th century. His name was Rabbi Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin. They called him the Netziv. He was the dean of the famed Volozhin Yeshiva, and he had authored several important works on the Talmud and on the Torah, including a monumental commentary on the Torah called Ha'emek Davar, the depths of the word. At a celebration marking the completion of one of his books, he got up and told a story. Now a story in a story, right? The Netziv gets up and he tells a story about a single night that changed his life forever. He tells the people gathered there to celebrate him that as a young boy, he was a poor child, a poor student. Not poor in the way of physically, poor in the way that he didn't apply himself to his studies, that he did very poorly in school. His teachers tried everything to draw him into the discussions, to engage him, but nothing worked. And eventually his teachers told his parents that there was little hope that their son would ever grow up to be a Torah scholar. And one night, young Naphtali overheard his parents talking about his future, or lack thereof. And he could hear the pain in his father's voice as they reluctantly concluded that continuing to send him to yeshiva was pointless. It was a waste of time and money to give him this special education, that he wasn't accomplishing anything. And they decided that they're going to pull him out of school and apprentice him as a carpenter so that at least he could learn a trade. At least they can set him up to make a living. Upon hearing this, the young Netziv said, I was devastated. I burst into the room. I broke down in tears and I pleaded with my parents, please don't give up on me. Give me one more year. Let me try one more time. I promise I will apply myself and do my best. But please, please don't give up on me yet. Moved by their son's sincerity, by their son's tears, his parents agreed to give him another chance. One more year of yeshiva. And he looks at the room and he says, and you know the result. That young boy went on to write the book that we're celebrating here tonight. And I can tell you that that young boy went on to become one of the greatest scholars of his generation. As the Netziv told this story at the celebration, he looked at the room and he said, had I not overheard that conversation, had I not begged for another chance, I might indeed have become a fine carpenter. I would have worked with my hands. I would have been honest in business. I would have made a respectable living, and that would be okay. And there's nothing wrong with being a fine carpenter. It's a fine profession. But imagine, he says to the room, after 120 years, I would arrive before the heavenly tribunal and they would ask me, Naphtali, where is your ha'emek davar? Where is your commentary on the Torah? Where is Meshiv davar? Where is your volume of responsa? Where is the Tosefot HaShalom and the Imrei Shefer, your commentaries on the Talmud and on the Passover Haggadah? Naphtali, where are all the books you were meant to write? He says, I would have looked at the angels in shock and said, what are you talking about? I'm just a simple carpenter. I think you're mistaking me for someone else. You must have the wrong Naphtali. Check your records. But it would have been me. I had been destined to be a great scholar, to write holy books, and to teach many students. But I nearly settled for a life that never would have realized that potential. He could have easily have lived out his days never knowing what he was truly capable of. How many people put themselves in jails of their potential? How many of us punish ourselves over and over and over again for the past, while the present's right in front of us? And there would have been nothing wrong with the path of life that he almost took, an honest carpenter, a fine occupation. But how much greatness would the world have lost? How much of his own greatness would have remained forever unborn, still in utero? The thousands of students he taught, the many important works he wrote, all of that insight and inspiration would have stayed locked inside him, never seeing the light of day. Hayom Harat Olam. Today, on Rosh Hashanah, we turn our attention to who we were meant to be, but have not yet become. Who am I? What is my potential? Today we focus on the new growth, the possibilities that lie dormant within us, the possibilities that are waiting to flourish. The rabbis wrote in the Talmud in quite a striking way. They ask what seems to be a strange question. What if someone sounds the shofar in a pit or a cave on Rosh Hashanah? Will the people listening to the shofar in a pit or in a cave, will they fulfill their obligation? Remember, the Talmud is about the law. They want to understand what is the law of the sounding of the shofar. The Mishnah answers, if you hear the clear sound of the shofar itself, then yes, you have fulfilled the mitzvah. You fulfilled the obligation. But if you hear an echo, if you hear an echo of the shofar, then you haven't fulfilled the obligation. I've always thought about this law. An echo of the shofar and you didn't fulfill your obligation. I think that Rosh Hashanah is a time for authentic sound, for authentic self-expression. We can't go through life anymore listening to the echoes of who we're supposed to be. The shofar's call, it challenges us to hear our own true sound, to hear the true voice within us, to express the best of ourselves and not live as a mere faint echo of our true potential. I think of this idea that we shouldn't live as an echo, or if you want to go into psychology, as a shadow of our true selves. And it reminds me of a story from the art world. Michelangelo and Raphael were two of the greatest artists of the Renaissance. They knew each other. Raphael was a generation younger, but he admired Michelangelo, and they knew each other. One day, Michelangelo visited Raphael's studio, and he wasn't there. Raphael wasn't there. But Michelangelo looked around, and he noticed a canvas on Raphael's easel. And on that canvas, Raphael had sketched out the beginning of a painting, and it included a figure that was beautifully drawn. But in Michelangelo's eyes, it was much too small, it was almost lost on the large canvas. And Michelangelo, being older and maybe even, if I can say this, a bit of a mentor, definitely a bit audacious, he picks up a paintbrush and he scrawled one powerful Latin word across the canvas. Imagine Raphael's face when he returned and he saw written in bold letters on his work in progress the word Amplius. Amplius in Latin means larger, or actually it's a request, make it bigger. Michelangelo was telling his friend, you can paint on a bigger scale. You're thinking too small. Your vision for this piece is cramped. It doesn't live up to the potential I know inside of you. Go bigger. And Michelangelo wanted Raphael to express and to expand the scope of his art, to fill the canvas with the greatness he was capable. Amplius. Think bigger. In a very real sense, Amplius is a message that Hayom Harat Olam is calling out to each of us, especially this year. Today, the world is born. Today, your world can be born anew. Life is a grand canvas. And Rosh Hashanah is screaming calling out, Amplius, make your life larger. Stop becoming your child. Stop going back to your inner child. Stop curling up and worrying about the future of the world. Give birth to new possibilities. Expand your vision so that you can fill the canvas of your life as only you uniquely can. Don't live small. Don't live a cramped existence. There are many things that we do that aren't wrong or bad, but they keep us living smaller than we could be. Maybe our relationships. Maybe our relationships are stuck at a mediocre level when we could have much deeper, more loving relationships. But we're scared. Well, how do I do this? Because it's dependent on someone else. How do I make that shift? How do I make that change? Especially when our kids are blocking that because we've been dancing a certain dance with them for so long. Especially when our partners have been blocking that because we've been dancing a certain dance for so long. Maybe the extent to which we reach out to help others, tzedakah. We give, or the time we offer, we care. Maybe it's not the best that we're capable of. Maybe we've grown complacent in our spiritual life, and we could be living more fully in line with our potential, learning more, praying more, engaging more. We could reach a higher level of life, of living, of spiritual growth than we have until today. This is exactly what we used to call the Jewish New Year, but what really is the birthday of us, of humankind, of humans. This is what it's calling upon us. It's a day to step back from the day-to-day details of our lives. Like an artist stepping back from the canvas to see the broader picture, to discern what needs changing in our life's painting to be complete. To see the world through the artist's eyes as a beautiful garden instead of the opposite. And so this is an invitation. This is a call. As we begin this new year, more than anything, God is urging us to take Amplius to heart, to broaden our lives, to live more lovingly, to care more deeply, to create a more vibrant and sacred self. I think many of us, I speak for myself, are living in the echoes of the past. We're coasting on a spiritual momentum of our parents, of our grandparents. But we all know an echo only lasts so long before it fades away. An echo has no power to carry on to the next generation. In a sense, in that law that always fascinated me about the shofar, the echo is not kosher. You cannot fulfill your obligation according to Torah to hear the shofar through an echo. Our children, our grandchildren can't live off the echo of our Judaism, off the echo of our spirituality. They need to hear an authentic, resounding voice coming from us. They need to hear strength, passion, love. To truly hear the shofar's message, we have to generate a fresh and exciting new sound, a sound of our own, a sound that comes from within us. We need the original primal sounds, the vibrant Jewish sound that rang in the souls of our great-grandparents to ring in our lives today. That is our own key. That God knows the potential of each of us. And he gave us this day, this beautiful day. Today is a beautiful day. Hayom, Hayom, today. Today is a beautiful day as a gift to spur us to become greater, to become nobler, to become holier than we were before. Amplius, think bigger, live bigger. And we can do this. Don't think that a life of holiness or a life of spiritual greatness is beyond you and it's just for the scholars. It's what do I know? That's false humility. What do I know? I'm a nobody. I know we've been trained. We, that's the past. They did a good job giving us that level of guilt or shame. What do I know? One of the fundamental teachings of Judaism is that goodness and holiness are not foreign in our nature, that they're woven into the very being of who we are. Living morally, living ethically, and living spiritually isn't meant to be forced or something imposed from the outside. It's actually just a return, a tshuva, a return to our deepest self, to who we really are. Rabbi Shneir Zalman of Liadi, in the Tanya, he taught that each of us has within us a beautiful power. He calls it Ava Misuteret. It's a hidden love. It's an innate drive towards goodness. If I can describe it in simple terms, that each of us, deep down, has a pure spark of love and goodness that can never be extinguished. It may lie hidden under the surface, but there's this yearning to be expressed. I think that modern psychology actually stumbled onto a similar concept, but from the opposite direction. In the late 19th century, Sigmund Freud revolutionized psychology with the idea of the unconscious mind. The notion that we often do things without knowing why, because there are hidden thoughts and desires that are buried beneath our awareness. How did Freud come to this idea? So there's a story from a time that Freud was studying in France. He was studying under a doctor named Ambroise Libaud, and he was a pioneer in hypnosis. And during one demonstration, Libaud hypnotized a man from the audience, and he gave him a curious post-hypnotic suggestion. And after the man woke up and returned to his seat, at a certain signal, he would stand up and open his umbrella indoors. But the man would have no conscious memory that he was instructed to do this. The subject was brought out of hypnosis and returned to the audience, and a few minutes later, as Lebeau was lecturing, he made a prearranged signal, and sure enough, this gentleman promptly stood up and popped open his umbrella in the middle of the lecture hall. And of course, you can imagine everyone is staring. And Lebeau turns to him and asks him, "Can you explain to us why in the world you just opened up your umbrella indoors?" And the man looked around, confused and embarrassed, and he couldn't explain it. And he suddenly just felt this urge to open his umbrella, even though it made no sense. And Lebeau pressed him. "Did someone tell you to do that?" The man said, "No, no one told me to do that." He had no recollection whatsoever of the instruction that had been given to him in front of the entire room under hypnosis. And when Freud is sitting there, Freud writes that this was a light bulb moment for me. He realized that something hidden in the mind, something a person is totally unaware of, can influence their behavior. That there was an idea planted in this man's mind that he himself didn't know was there. And yet it caused him to do something inexplicable, unexplainable to him. And from experiences like this, Freud developed his theory of the unconscious motivation, that we have thoughts, that we have feelings that drives that we're not aware of. And they push us to act in certain ways. Now, Freud being Freud, he of course went on to trace many of those unconscious drives to the repressed impulses and to the childhood traumas. And eventually he diagnosed just about everyone with some kind of neurotic Meshuggah, some crazy person. But I still think that this concept of the unconscious was groundbreaking. And it made Freud one of the most influential figures of the 20th century, even into the 21st century. He taught the world that not everything going on inside us is conscious, that there's a lot we don't know about ourselves. And I'm happy the world knows that today. And I think the world is a better place because of that, if we choose to tap into that, which that's also a choice. Judaism taught about the hidden inner drives long before Freud, though in a very different way. And I want to contrast this for you for a moment. Judaism said that just as there are negative and base instincts lurking beneath the surface, there is also a tremendously positive force that it calls our higher unconscious. So Freud saw the negative. Judaism sees this as a positive, that there's a higher unconscious, that we have an innate divine soul that often lies hidden beneath the noise of the day. And we're usually unaware of the treasures that are buried in our own spiritual subconscious. Standard psychotherapy tries to dredge up whatever is hiding in the unconscious. And often what surfaces are the murky, ugly bits of ourselves that we've repressed. But sometimes that process can be, if I can say frankly, more depressing than enlightening. It can leave a person feeling like Jeremiah lamenting, Oi, what a mess I am. What a mess is inside of me. Ay, ay, ay. But on Rosh Hashanah, the Shofar calls us to look at a different layer of our unconscious, to uncover a higher self that we have forgotten. Hayom Harat Olam. Today, let the world of goodness inside of you be born. Today, give birth to the beautiful, godly qualities that have been waiting under the surface. That we must never despair of ourselves or of any other person, no matter how difficult the world becomes, no matter how far we have strayed. The doors of teshuvah, the doors of return, are always open. No matter how distant someone feels from their lives, from their true selves, from their authentic selves, from Jewish life, from their own soul, that we believe that at any moment that spark can be reignited. Our tradition says, Ki lo yidach mimenu nidach, that no human will be lost to God, will never give up on one person. I'm going to share with you one final story, if you allow me. It's the year 1935, in the dark days of Stalin's Soviet Union. The communist regime had outlawed the practice of Judaism and persecuted anyone who tried to keep Jewish life alive. In the city of Dnipropetrovsk in Ukraine, there was the revered rabbi, a beautiful man. His name was Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Schneerson. You may have heard of him before. He was the father of the Rebbe. He served as the chief rabbi of the city of Dnepr. That's what it's called today. Despite the grave risk of arrest, or even worse, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak defied the authorities, and he continued to teach Torah to keep Judaism alive in Dnepr. He served the Jewish community in secret. One cold night around 11 p.m., Rabbi Levi Yitzchak heard a knock at his door. When he cautiously opened it, an older Jewish woman slipped inside, glancing around to make sure no one else was there. And in a hushed, urgent voice, she said, "Rabbi, I have come from a distant city. I cannot even tell you its name. In about an hour at midnight, my daughter and her fiancé will be arriving here as well. Both of them hold high positions in the Soviet government. So coming here is extremely dangerous for them. They have agreed, after much pleading from me, to have a proper Jewish wedding under a chuppah, according to our tradition. But they set one condition: you must be the rabbi to officiate this wedding. Under no circumstance will they do it with anyone else. I came ahead of them to give you a little time to prepare." And of course, being a rabbi, he didn't need much time to prepare for the wedding. What an opportunity, what a beautiful privilege. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak immediately agreed to help, and at midnight the young couple arrived, carefully making sure that they weren't being followed. They were brought quietly into the side room of the rabbi's apartment. Now, to perform a Jewish wedding, you need a minyan. You need 10 to witness, to celebrate the ceremony. And the rabbi had to somehow gather 10 in the middle of the night without drawing any attention. They had to be people that he could trust with this extraordinary secret, because if word of this illegal religious ceremony leaked out, the lives of everyone involved, the bride, the groom, the rabbi, the participants, would be in serious danger. By 12:30 in the morning, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak had managed to gather enough people to make this wedding happen. But there was one missing. They needed one more. There were 9 there, but there was one missing. They needed to complete the minyan. And time was ticking, and the situation was urgent. Who would he call at this hour? Who could he trust not to report them to the secret police? Now, in the very same building where the rabbi lived, there lived a young Jewish man who ironically was an agent of the KGB, of the secret Soviet police. His job was literally to spy on the rabbi. That was why he was in the building, to monitor all his activities, to make sure that the rabbi was not conducting any illegal religious gatherings. Essentially, this man was assigned to collect evidence against the rabbi. But in an act of bold faith, the rabbi did something incredible. He sent someone to knock on that very agent's door and to ask him to come upstairs to complete the minyan. You can imagine the other members of the minyan were shocked by the rabbi's decision. Is he crazy? Did he lose his mind? The young agent came upstairs, probably perplexed why he was being summoned in the middle of the night to the rabbi's apartment. He walked in, he saw the gathering, and in a stern voice, he demanded to know, "Why have you called me here?" Rabbi Levi Yitzchak looked at him straight in the eye and he said, "I'll tell you why. We're about to perform a wedding here, right now. This young couple has come because they want to be married in a proper Jewish ceremony according to Jewish law. We need a 10th man for the minyan, and I want you to be the 10th man." The Soviet agent was completely taken aback. He said, "You're asking me? Rabbi, do you know who I am? Do you know what my job is?" And he looks at him straight in the eye and he says, "I know exactly who you are. And yes, I'm asking you Without you, we cannot do this mitzvah. The man stood there stunned for a moment, and then without another word, he walked over to the window. He closed the shutters tightly. He took a deep breath, removed his hat, and he said, "Tell me what to do." And so in the middle of the night, in a clandestine gathering, lit by a few candles, they held a beautiful, traditional Jewish wedding. The agent stayed as the 10th, participated quietly in the prayers and in the ceremony, and the wedding concluded around 1:30 a.m. The bride and groom slipped back into the darkness, heading home as a newly married couple. And that young agent, his life was never the same. Something had awakened inside of him, his heart. Something sparked his soul that night. Something was reignited through that brief but powerful experience. And as it happened, a couple of months later, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak was arrested, and he was put on trial by the Soviet authorities for the crime of spreading Judaism. And at the trial, which was made public, the regime brought witnesses to testify against him, and one of the key witnesses that was called was this Jewish agent, the one who was assigned to monitor the rabbi. And in front of the courtroom, packed with officials and townspeople, many of them non-Jews, the man was asked to report on what he observed in Rabbi Schneerson's home. He stood up, and at great personal risk, he lied through his teeth to protect Rabbi Levi Yitzchak. He testified that he had never seen the rabbi doing anything illegal. He had never seen the rabbi doing anything anti-government. He claimed that he had never witnessed gatherings. He had never witnessed a religious ceremony. Nothing unusual ever happened. It's written in the court documents. He said nothing unusual happened in the rabbi's house. He even signed his name with his false testimony, taking full responsibility for his words. And thanks in part to this man's bold and false testimony, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak was eventually given a somewhat more lenient sentence than expected, though he still was exiled in Siberia for many years. I think of the story. I think of a man who had been chosen and groomed by the Soviet authorities to infiltrate and uproot Jewish observance. And yet in the moment of truth, he chose to uphold and to protect it. Because that midnight wedding kindled something in his soul that never went out. Beneath the cynical, hardened exterior of that communist agent, there was a core of purity, a core of goodness. Beneath his loyalty to the party was a deeper loyalty to his own people, to his faith. Within the hardened shell of a KGB spy, there beat a sensitive Jewish heart, a holy neshama, a soul that had been there waiting for an opportunity to emerge. I think of the story. We should never underestimate the power of one person. In a world that's so uncertain, it is our opportunity to reach a higher self. There's so much good in each of us that remains concealed, that remains unborn, just waiting for the right moment to come to life. We have alert minds and curious intellects, and we know that we could use them to make the world a better place to study, to connect, to do good deeds. We have a deep sense of loyalty to our past, to our ancestors, to our parents and grandparents. And deep down, we know that we could do more to connect to ourselves, to the future, to our community, to our tradition. We have big hearts that are capable of love, and we know that we're capable of being more patient, more compassionate, more present, more giving to our partners, to our children, to others. We can be more loving mothers and fathers and grandparents, more devoted husbands, wives, more committed to ourselves, to our heritage. Hayom Harat Olam. Today is pregnant, filled with momentous possibility. This day is filled with a tremendous potential for change. But there's also a danger, as Jeremiah lamented. It's possible for the pregnancy to go on and on forever, for potential to remain permanently potential. And we can get stuck in the realm of I could be and never move into I am becoming. Rosh Hashanah is this. It challenges us not to remain in the world of possibility, but to courageously step into a world of choice, into a world of action, to finally give birth to that better self that has been waiting within. Hayom Harat Olam, today our choices will give birth to the future for ourselves, for our children, for our families, for our community. And every time we hear that shofar blast throughout this high holiday season, throughout Rosh Hashanah, Tekiah, Shavarim, Trua, Tekiah, again and again, we can respond that today the world is born anew. And so my blessing to you and my wish to each and every one of you, as Rosh Hashanah is near, that this moment, that today, we have a new chance to connect, to be present. Today, we can recreate ourselves. We can let the divine spark within each of us emerge into new life. We can reach new heights. We can bring new hope to ourselves, to our families, to the world. We can seize this incredible moment, this day of birth, to realize our deepest potentials. And may God give us the courage to answer the call of the shofar, to move from who we are to who we are meant to be. And as we do so, may God bless us, our loved ones, and the world with a year of love, of life, of love, of health, with a year of growth, with a year of fulfilled promises. And may this year lead us to today is truly the birthday of the world. Hayom Harat Olam. Today is truly the birthday of the world, the birthday of our world, and our ability to, as we've been raising our voices for thousands of years, to see the world as a garden, a beautiful new world, our beautiful new world, and to be the ones that continually create the world anew, the co-creators of this beautiful world together with God. Shana Tova, a beautiful, happy, and healthy New Year. And I cannot wait to see you on the other side.